This is a Finance Committee meeting of the Darien Board of Education. I guess we'll just kick it off with the review of the May 2021 to 2022 financial report, Rich, and just notice that there's not a lot of action between the numbers month to month.
Sure. Yep. So this is the financial report through May. We are forecasting a year-end positive balance of $683,332. As you mentioned, there really isn't a big change between the previous months. The change is $2,602. We did see a spike in substitutes at the secondary level. So we did reduce the forecast of savings for interns, clubs and councils, and some salary savings, as we did need that to cover interns. Legal fees and special ed are trending positive, so it's another $5,000. Tuition is another $18,000 due to a reduction in anticipated settlement. We do have some small savings in utilities, primarily water, due to consumption. Property insurance is down by about $1,000 due to vandalism claims. And then substitutes in ELP are projected at a deficit of about $6,000. We do have a transfer for this. We do have 2 teachers on a leave of absence due to workers' compensation. So this is similar to the transfers we had earlier in the year for facilities employees. But these are teaching staff employees. So we're getting reimbursed from Comm, which is our workers' comp account, and we're just using that to cover for the substitute costs. Overall, general education RCs are a positive 118,872, which is really in line with the previous months. The special education RCs are forecasted at a positive $562,708. That is really almost all excess cost related. We did receive the final reimbursement last month, as I mentioned, and so that final reimbursement rate was 80.03%. And then the COVID RC is a positive $1,751. Other than the substitute cost, there are no changes in RC 1 or 3, no changes in RC 5, 8, 10, 12, or 13. No changes in 16, 18, 19, 20, or 23. As I mentioned earlier, in special education, we are forecasting a positive balance of $25,000. In legal fees, we do have 2 more months to record. There is a lag in terms of when we get billed. Tuition overall is a positive, a little over $30,000 between public and non-public. And again, I mentioned the reimbursement rate for excess cost was 80.03. So we did receive about $548,000 more than anticipated, which is really the bulk of that $563,000 savings in the special education RCs. And fixed, the utilities continue to trend slightly positive, both in heat and electricity and sewer. Workers' compensation, we are forecasting a positive balance of a little over $9,000. Again, we are recommending a transfer to cover the leave of absence for a couple of teachers who are out on workers' compensation. And then in RC 26, substitutes do show a negative balance of a little over $6,000. We do have 2 teachers, as I mentioned, on a long-term leave of absence due to worker compensation claims. So we are recommending taking the reimbursement from Comm to cover the cost of those substitutes, which is the one transfer we'll discuss later.
If you just want to go through the grants.
Sure. Minimal changes in the grants. The ones we do want to highlight is, as is the case in previous years, IDA does intend to carry over a little over $100,000. That grant does support special education staffing, primarily teachers and paraprofessionals. The title grants are relatively the same. We do carry 1 employee in the Title I grant who is an interventionist. The ARP ESSER funds, we do anticipate to have a positive balance of $117,650. This was savings largely associated with the resignation in one of the interventionist positions, as well as some savings and some technology and facility related items that were supported in that grant. So those funds will carry over into the following fiscal year. And then just in terms of the food service financial report, we are forecasting a positive P&L of just under $167,000. We did have a large improvement from April of $78,000. One of the questions at the last meeting we had was, how does this compare to the non-COVID era in the past? So we did pull the audited financial statements from the past. From fiscal year 10 to fiscal year 19, which were the pre-COVID era months, the average profit was about $17,000 in a year. We actually had one year where the district lost $72,000 in 1 year. So you can see that we are much better off in the current year with Chartwell's compared to where we were.
And that's with food inflation.
That is with food inflation too. Yep. So one of the benefits with Chartwell's is they are a large organization. They have a lot of buying power. They're not just buying for Darien, they're buying for us, they're buying for Westport, and colleges, and not just in Connecticut. Whereas when we're on our own and we're self-funded, we're just buying for ourselves. So when you're on your own and you're self-op, those food costs would have hurt us even more.
So economies of scale are kicking in. Pricing relative to those years. I mean, I know we have inflation, but I guess our profit margins, where I'm going with this, our profit margins are being driven by economies of scale and not pricing increases.
So not price increases. The prices for a typical meal are set by the board and they haven't been raised. A la carte prices are roughly the same as they've been in the past, slightly up for some smaller things. But it's really rebates associated with purchasing power. It's lower cost in labor because we are contracting out through attrition. So we have, I believe, 9 employees left who are Darien Public School employees and the rest are Chartwell's employees. So it's kind of that mix. So you're saving in labor as well as just purchasing power.
Okay. I'd love to delve into that with the board, just as we did now at our next meeting, just to kind of highlight that.
Sure.
If everybody agrees.
I am just, is the idea to eventually have no Darien? Okay.
Well, John, well done in implementing this. Any questions on the financial report, grants, or food service budget? Seeing none, why don't we just go to transfers? Oh, sorry, Dennis.
No, sorry. Rich, just a quick question. You have on in DHS that the clubs and councils not rebate of $1,200 due to not filling French and Blue Wave News. That's the stipend, or those clubs? So those clubs are not running this year?
So that in the case of the French club, it's not running this year, so we're not paying that stipend.
Okay, and Blue Wave News, is that running or?
They started to run it halfway through the year.
Okay.
So we didn't end up having to pay the full stipend. You pay like a prorated portion of that stipend.
Thanks. Just curious on the clubs, more for clubs than finances. Thank you.
Okay, if we could just move on to that transfer.
Sure. So there is one transfer we're requesting for approval. It's for $6,600. This would take funds out of the workers' compensation account and go to the substitute account in ELP. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a couple of teachers who are out on a long-term leave of absence due to workers' compensation claim. So Comm reimburses us for that cost. And so essentially it's an accounting transfer, but it does cross broad categories, which makes it a board transfer. So it is just to really reimburse those substitute costs.
Awesome. And I would support that transfer. I recommend to support the transfer to the board. You too, Dennis? All right. Anything else? Public comment?
There is no public audience this morning.
Yeah, don't see any here either. So with that, could I get a motion for adjournment? Second. All in favor? Thanks.